Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents. With me, your host, Valerie, and sometime kitty co-hosts Ms. Purrington and Mookie are safe at home. We are recording from the Fallout Theater podcast studio. Thank you, Fallout Theater. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy. In addition to podcasts, Comedy Wham brings you articles, album reviews, show reviews, our advice column, our listing of festivals from across the country and the world, our FPIA contest page, and my articles for the Austin Chronicle and thebarbedwire.com about the Austin and Texas comedy scene. Our most popular feature is our events page for live comedy shows in Austin, Houston, and DFW, where 100% of the entries you see come from comics and producers. Click the Submit a Show button from the top of the homepage or events page to fill out the survey to get your show listed. It's free and easy. Tag us on your Instagram stories and we'll share your show promo to our followers. We also offer paid promo pushes on Instagram. Speaking of events, come check out our monthly Canyon Grill comedy show in Lakeway on the first Wednesdays of the month. Want to support these resources we provide? You can donate to Comedy Wham on PayPal, Venmo, or even Patreon. Click the Support CW icon on our homepage to see the ways that you can help us. Our podcast was launched in 2016 to bring you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us. Today, we are talking to the 2018 Cap City Comedy Club funniest person in Austin. He is the head writer for Fallout Tonight, and he is the co-host of Signing Off, which follows Fallout Tonight. All of this at Fallout Theater, which we're recording from Fallout Theater right now. And now, Comedy Wham presents our guest, Jon Mendoza.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I guess I was saying before, 8 years in the making. I remember watching you at the original Austin Java for Sure Things. And, now that we are post-COVID times, I'm very confident, you probably are too, very few newer comics know who you are and the lore that you have pre-COVID times.
Do I have lore?
I think you do.
Well, that's cool. I mean, yeah, we can get into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have encountered. I was at the open mic this week here, and Angelina Martin introduced me to like 8 people in the green room, and nobody was. They're like, "Oh, are you new here?" And I'm like,
Oh,
no.
man.
I just disappeared for a while.
Yeah. Well, and you're very quiet, and you're not the typical loud, boisterous comic either. You've just always, to me, been just very quiet, reserved. You like observing. That's very evident from the style of comics that you do. You're very careful in your wording. Is the best
Deliberate,
way I can
usually say.
Yeah. Well, before we get into all of that, let's start with my opening question.
Okay.
One word to describe your past.
Muddled.
Muddled. Okay.
Yeah. If I just have one word,
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Mesquite, Texas, a suburb of Dallas.
You're a DFWite.
Yeah.
I'm from Burleson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Opposite corners, but
Yeah. I just want to kind of fast forward because I think we build context from the style of comedy that you do, which one of my favorite comics is Anthony Jeselnik, because one of the things that I love that he does is that very, very, very tight word delivery. Not word delivery, limited word choices.
Right, word economy.
Word economy. Thank you. And that's how I've always viewed your comedy. It's all very precise.
Yeah.
And is that a personality trait?
I mean, I have always, I went to school for playwriting and stuff like, for in college. And so like I have like performance and writing background, and that was
Okay.
just something like I got super into like absurd comedy. And one of the guys that I really liked was always very like deliberate with his words, and he was famous for his name is Harold Pinter, and there's this thing called they call the Pinter pause, and he writes pauses into all of his work. And so I was just like, I've always kind of been like a relentless editor where I'm like try to say the most in the least amount of space, like in try to say as much as I can with as few words as possible.
Yeah.
And when I first started writing jokes, it wasn't intentional. Like I kind of just landed on the one-liner thing. Um, but that was just kind of what worked for me because I would just edit the shit out of everything. And, it's great in some ways, but it also makes it a really, really tough to fill time. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's, compared to what a lot of today's comedy seems to be, where it's either conversational or just it sounds very off the cuff, improvisational. It must take not only the hard work to figure out, the bare minimum amount of words to use to set up and then land the punchline, but also you can't do fillers, and that's got to take so much discipline.
yeah. I mean, and there's little things where I'm like, where like I've said like a filler line kind of after a joke, and then it's worked enough times to where it sort of becomes part of the joke, and then I'll edit that down a little bit too. But yeah, it's just I remember like the first time doing like a feature at Cap City, and it was like 25 minutes, and it was like I had this sheet of paper, and I always like all of my little like all my jokes are just one word basically, or as far as like how I write them on a set list or whatever. And I think I had to tell 52 jokes to fill 25 minutes. And, some of it's like scraping the barrel, like some old stuff that I'm like, I never loved that, but I'm just trying to fill some time. So, but yeah, it can be, it's a blessing and a curse, I think it made me very well suited for the contest. There's always people like, Aaron Brooks, who's, I love Aaron Brooks, and so funny, but it's like that guy's he's not good I mean, I don't want to say he's not good. 6 minutes is not built for him.
No.
And my contest at that year, I told 14 jokes in 6 minutes. You know what I mean? It's like, that's how short some of them are. And so it's like, they're shorter, and so they're easier to remember, and, so it's easier, like in a very punchy 6-minute set that I always felt like it was always better suited to somebody. Like if we did a 15-minute set contest, I think Aaron probably does a lot better than me,
Yeah. So you said that you went to school for playwriting.
Yeah.
Was that born out of a love of writing, or were you performing as well?
Yeah, I mean, like I had a high school theater teacher who like sort of took an interest in me. I had to take like a fine arts class, and then he just sort of was like, "You're clever, and I need dudes," because we were going to do Macbeth the following year, and he's like, "I need a lot of guys," and so he just I kind of found a home there, and or like an outlet for stuff, and then he just started encouraging me to write, and so I wrote a bunch of crap, like, and then I wrote for like my high school newspaper, and that kind of started to pick up a little steam. And he ended up helping me get into the college that I went to, and it was a small department, so everybody did kind of everything, but I was one of like 3 people that you had to pick like technical theater, performance, or playwriting, and so I did kind of a split between playwriting and performance. We didn't have like I took like maybe 3 playwriting classes, so it was like I guess I could be a minor in playwriting, but it was mostly just performance stuff. And then I just one of my teachers was like sort of my mentor, and so I would just write a lot of stuff and then give it to her and have her sort of tell me where to go with it and keep working on it and editing and all that sort of stuff. But
okay, I'm stuck at trying to visualize you as a performer in a theater context, because I know you most as your persona, or how your demeanor on stage telling jokes.
Right.
So, I mean, is there a Jon Mendoza that is like?
No, I mean, I can be like most of this. I rarely got cast in stuff in college and that was like dramatic roles. You know, I would have one-off little things here and there.
Uh-huh.
But for the most part, I did a lot of the comedy, stuff that like the comedies that we were doing. And I mean, I can definitely be a little bit more, boisterous is probably not the word, but a little bit more gregarious on stage if it called for it. But a lot of times it was just because so much of comedy is like timing and then making a decision. And my teacher, the directors that was my teacher, was like, she kind of let me do my own thing because she's like, you find weird moments that are funny that I would have, like, the script doesn't necessarily dictate, but it gets the laugh and it doesn't distract from what we're trying to do. So just, I don't want to cut that out. I don't want to, like, beat that out of you, So she kind of just let me wander, and then she would sort of pull me back if I went. She's like, okay, that was funny, but it's like it's distracting from the point of this scene or whatever, and so it just kind of learned, and I guess in some ways to follow my instincts, but also learn how to like take direction, and I think it helped with doing stand up more than anything. I skipped a few steps, I feel like, over a lot of people that decide to do stand up because they didn't have a background in writing, or more than anything, they didn't have a background in being on stage or performance, and and so it was like I had 8 years of being on stage and writing and knowing how to make like a character choice or a persona choice than a lot of people didn't.
Yeah, this shatters my whole worldview because I thought you were this very timid, shy person on stage because that's who Jon was.
I mean, it's not me. I always tell people, like, I come and talk to Duncan's stand-up classes that he teaches here, like once out of every session that he does.
Yeah.
And I always tell them that, like, you don't have to have a persona on stage, but a lot of times, like, a persona that you have on stage is just an exaggeration of some part of your personality.
Yeah.
And whether that's the bigger, louder version of yourself or one that says things that are a bit more crass than you might, I think of somebody like Daniel Webb, who was like such a big personality, one of the funniest people I've ever met. But conversationally, Daniel could be very like soft spoken, and you know what I mean. Yeah. And so it was just like that was a persona that he was. And I think it's a lot like him, but it was an exaggeration of him, on the stage. And so I am pretty shy, and I try to pick my spots conversationally, and I'm never gonna try and like be loud. I'm not gonna be louder than most people. So you just kind of pick the quiet spots, and and that's how a lot of the jokes I have are like picking the quiet spots and finding fun in silence. People laugh when they're uncomfortable, and you get free laughs sometimes just by sitting there.
At what point did you decide to try out stand up?
I had started right out of college in like 2003. I graduated like 2 weeks before 2004, so I was working shitty jobs. And
were you still in the DFW area?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was working at a GNC in Highland Park.
Woohoo!
And we only had one person in the store at a time. There was a lot of time. I had a lot of time to sit, and I had one of those little like the little handheld recorders. And I would write stuff, and I would try to, I'd always told myself that I would try it. And I'd chickened out in Dallas. And the deal that I'd always made with myself is that I would try it before I turned 30.
Okay.
And my first open mic was 2 months after my 30th birthday. And I had started like writing just a dumb like WordPress blog of just like dumb ideas. Because I used to just go and like find weird articles on Wikipedia, and I'd be like, well, that's interesting. And all I was really doing was I was writing comedy, and I didn't realize that
Yeah.
that's what I was. But I would just post that on Facebook, and people were like, "Oh, this is pretty funny." And so then I tried to like over time, I started editing some of those things down into things that ended up kind of becoming some of my first early bits and stuff. But I had planned on starting when I was 23, and then I didn't until I was 30.
Oh my gosh.
So, but I also think if I had tried it when I was 23, I would have probably quit early, and I may not have tried it ever again. So I think it found me when it was supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the meantime, but you've always been a writer. Like you've written professionally, and a lot of your jobs have been writing. So it's just who you are. Is to write.
I always say it's like it finds its way out some way or another.
Yeah.
And I used to tell people I started writing jokes because no one wants to read your fucking play. Because I used to write stuff right out of college. I would try and write like other play ideas that I had, and it was before smartphones, and so I had a couple of roommates, and I used to leave them sitting on the back of the toilet just to see it, because it's like better than reading the shampoo bottle, and sometimes people would read them, and they'd be like, "Did you leave that back there?" And like, yeah, I'm trying to get somebody to give me some fucking feedback on this thing. But you write a 15-second joke, and people are like, "Okay, I can put up with that. I don't have to like deal with character development or anything like that."
Have you written since college? Have you written a play that you wish you could, or that has seen, or that you wish could see the light of day?
No, I mean, I had two that I was really proud of, and I mostly wrote short. I have one act that was like my sort of final project. That was about 25, half an hour. And then I wrote one 10-minute play that I was really proud of. That was, it was a World War II reenactment done by children on a playground.
Okay.
And I got pretty close. Like I entered those in competitions and stuff in college, and so they have like this thing called the American College Theater Festival, and you go through a couple of rounds of it. But if you make it to the final round, it's run by the Kennedy Center, and so I got one step short of the Kennedy Center for both of those, and so I didn't get to go all the way, but I got enough like recognition to where I got a couple of like good grad school offers, but a lot of them were in New York, and they were like $65,000 and for 2 years, and I didn't have the money, and I didn't want two playwriting degrees that were never going to be worth anything. So, and it was just going to be too expensive to try and live in New York. So I just waited tables for the next 10 years.
And worked at GNC by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a bunch of weird odd jobs, and mostly restaurant stuff, but yeah.
So, when did you find yourself in Austin?
I moved here in April of 2007.
Okay.
And
so you started the stand-up in Dallas.
I started trying to write jokes in Dallas.
Okay.
But I didn't
your
do...
Your first time doing stand-up was...
Cap City, like March of
Really?
2011, yeah. My very first night in Austin, my one of my oldest friends, he was my next-door neighbor growing up, Ted Meredith. He's been a performer at Esther's Follies for the last 18 years. Oh, wow. He and I grew up together. And when I moved here, I moved in with him, and he was like, "Hey, I know it's your first night in town, but if you want to go do something, one of my friends is performing in this contest." And it was... it was a preliminary round of at Cap City, and I remember sitting there and being like, "This sucks." Like these people are bad, because it was a prelim night, yeah. But
so there's nobody you remember?
No, I don't.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah. Well, and I'm like, I guess that would have been 2007. I don't even know who would have been. I'm sure it was like Gutman and Lucas but yeah, I don't remember anybody in particular. I literally got here like 3 p.m, and then we were like unloaded all my stuff, and then at 8 o'clock we were at Cap City. So
And so watching these terrible comics, you didn't think, oh, maybe not.
So I ended up moving here and then just trying to figure out a lot of different things. And I just knew I wanted to be here. And some of my good friends had moved here. And I just kind of, I don't know. I wanted to figure out something. And then, I thought you could just show up to Cap City and do for the open mic. And so I was just like, okay, they have the open mics on this Sunday. And I went up there and tried to sign up, and they're like, oh, you have to like sign up over this email thing.
Yeah.
And I went 2 weeks in a row. I went and watched open mics, and I was like, okay, like I can at least be this bad, and so that's kind of what finally got me up there. So I just kept signing up, and there was a couple, I think like a week or two that I didn't get on, and then finally, like early March, I had gotten on. So my first open mic was at Cap City, and then I started going to like Kick Butt and stuff like that.
So how did it feel performing jokes for the first time?
Obviously, I mean, I took like 3 shots of whiskey before I went up.
Oh, really?
But one of the things that I'm glad I did, and that I feel like was a smart choice, is I didn't invite anybody.
Yeah.
And I didn't invite anybody for the first month that I had done any kind of performance. Because I didn't want, a lot of people were like, they invite all their friends out, and then their friends are like, oh, you did so good. I didn't want anybody to like, I wanted an honest reaction from complete strangers to know if I was good at all, Yeah. And then I signed up for, I think I was at the Cap City mic like right before that Sunday before, I guess, the deadline for the contest was. And so I think I had done 4 open mics ever. And then I was like, if you're going to do this, because I used to work in the middle of the night at a 24-hour diner, and they switched me to working in the daytimes so that I could start, because I said I wanted to start doing comedy. And so I'm like, you just changed like your whole work schedule and everything around. So I'm like, if you're going to do this,
you gotta do it.
Go do it in front of 300 people. And so I signed up for the contest after doing 4 open mics, and that was the only time I never made it out of the prelims.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah, it was, and like kind of from then on, I was like, all right, well, you just switched your whole life around to do this, so start going,
Yeah. Is the Jon Mendoza that won the FPIA contest the same as far as how you wrote and delivered your jokes? Is that the same as how you started?
No. I mean, there's like shades of it, but there's another thing I told Duncan's class is like, because I always tell them like, you're going to get nervous, and so you're going to want to talk fast. And that's what I did. And I used to pace a lot. And I used to, if I took the mic out of the stand, I would pace around, and then I would get nervous, and I'd be pacing, and I would start to talk faster. And then I noticed, I think I went to watch Punch, or I was somewhere. I don't remember what specifically drove me to do it, but at one point I decided to just leave the mic in the stand. And that kept me from pacing, which kept me from talking faster. And so I started talking slower. And then I really started to play around with the speed and taking much longer pauses. And then that was kind of what opened up a lot of that was like a big, just leaving the mic in the stand was kind of a big key to like the shift in how I approached it. But I think, like I said, I didn't intend to start writing one-liners. That's just kind of what came out. And for somebody, as much as I play around with silence, I have trouble telling stories on stage because I can't deal with the silence that happens in the exposition of a story sometimes. And so I've tried to, and I've had some bits that run a little bit longer here and there, but nothing that's ever been more than, 2 minutes or anything like that. So
no, I remember there are 2 jokes of yours that they're just so perfect. And The one is the manslaughter joke, and that's what I knew you as, is, the one-liner. But then you started. I don't know when I started seeing the joke about the tree, the book.
I haven't told that one in ages.
I just remember. Oh, it's a long story joke kind of format.
Yeah.
I'm so used to the one-liners from Jon, and this is like a long story, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, even that one is like, for me, it's like maybe a minute and a half, and that one was fun for me because it was one of the first times I kind of leaned into going really dark with something, and it was a very like interesting barometer. Like I could tell kind of how a set was going to go. If I did that joke early and people were on board, then I'm like, okay, I can do a lot of other weird stuff. But if they hated that, I was like, okay, I have to pivot to like a little bit more, not, I don't want to say like family friendly, but crowd friendly jokes. I had a woman boo me at the Buzzmill once whenever I told that joke, because she just thought I was like, well, for your audience, there's a part where I get into talking about skinning a baby. And she was just like, absolutely not. And I was like, okay, well,
it's a comedy show.
Yeah, you're ruining this for everyone, including most especially me. But yeah, that was like, it was rare that I'd ever go super dark, and that was kind of one of the more grim things that I've thought about bringing it back, and I've just now in the last 7-8 months kind of started to go back out and actually do stand up again. So yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a little. I didn't warn you ahead of time. We're going to take a little pause break here, and then we're going to kind of go into FPIA and then life since the pandemic. So I have this card game. Our web guru Richard Goodwin gave this to me, and I incorporated into our podcast. And I'm going to take out 2 cards. I haven't seen them before. And you're going to point to one of them. And these are just, I guess 3. I don't know how to count. You're going to point to one. Okay, I'm going to read this one to you after you read that one to me.
Okay.
And then we'll go through that and pick back up after.
Okay. I'm most competitive when it comes to ...
Oof. Oh, man.
Are you like...
I kind of want to say about everything.
Same.
But also about nothing.
Okay. I mean, I actually totally get that, where I'm like...
It's like I have to be presented with something, and then I don't know if it's being competitive or if it's being petty.
There's a fine line.
Yeah. Because, like, the thing that comes up in my mind is like, okay, so Comedy Wham, we have an Instagram account, and I wish we had more followers, but we don't. And then I look at other accounts, and I'm like, man, I wish I had that many followers. And then I realize, what would it matter? It wouldn't change really what I do every day.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, it's a number.
Of course. It's a tangible thing. I totally get that.
And then with everything else, I'm old. I've got a kid. I'm very happy with how he's turned out. So it's like, what do I have to compete about?
Right.
I've got a great kid.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also fair. Yeah. I get what you mean by saying that it's like being both competitive about, like, I can get that way where I'm like, I definitely want to win sometimes, but sometimes I'm like, who cares? Like, am I having fun? If I'm not having fun, then stop doing it.
There you know? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right, Jon, yours is, I'm irrational when it comes to...
I don't know. I think I can be irrational about, well, I have a lot of irrational fears, you know. um, but I think when I was younger, I would say I can be irrational about sports.
Oh, wow.
Like I grew up as a kid who like, you know, my team losing would like fuck up my day.
Oh, no.
And at some point I got to like where I was 25, 26 around there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't like, it sucks if they lose, but it's like, okay, turn off the TV and go about your everyday life. But it definitely used to like really bother me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm infinitely happier. I much prefer to like, I still keep up with a lot of sports, but I much prefer to think of it as just like my like male soap operas.
Yes, that's
Because there's
perfect.
always like drama and there's storylines and like, oh, this guy's hurt and this guy doesn't like
Yeah.
this guy and they play on, you know, they're playing today, you know, and it's like, that's kind of, if I think about it like that, it's just like my stories, you know, that I'm infinitely happier not living and dying by.
Yeah. Yeah.
My team, and I rep mostly all Dallas teams. So I was a Yankees fan for a while. My mom's from the Bronx, but not anymore. So
It's good. It's good to be level-headed about, sports that, all you can do is watch it on TV or listen to it.
yeah,
read
they're
about-
not
yeah.
thinking about me,
No.
you know.
Right. All right. So let's get back to the time period between you first starting out with comedy, and then as somebody who's been watching comedy since 2012, my very first time to go see Sure Thing, which I don't know if you've ever heard that story. Like Sure Thing was my therapy post divorce.
Okay.
And so that's how I became like so addicted to going to Sure Thing shows, and then eventually just all comedy in Austin. And for anyone newer that doesn't know what Sure Thing is, it was a long-running showcase that went 512 shows. Started at an old Austin Java on Lamar, north.
12th
South?
Lamar?
Yeah, it's North Lamar, right?
Yeah.
12th and Lamar, and it was run by Duncan Carson and Brendan K. O'Grady, and it always brought it's one of the best showcases in Austin history. Sorry, anybody else? No, Angelina does great stuff. Angelina and Carlton do great shows at Buzzkill, and Chris Tellas with his Shit's Golden. Great shows.
Yeah, I think Sure Thing just had kind of a bigger thing because they did the record label with it, and they,
Yeah.
they released people's albums and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So there was like a whole universe, Sure Thing extended universe, you know.
Yeah. So you were doing a lot of comedy during that era, leading up to that 2018 FPIA. And it sounds like from what you were saying earlier that you competed in every one.
Yeah, I mean, so I started in 2011 and did that contest. 3 weeks, a month after I started.
Yeah.
And then did everyone until 2018. But like the following year after I had started, I made it to the finals that year.
Okay.
And which was great because I was like, okay, you're good at this and it's working, but it also like there's like a lot of, it was pretty well established here, like it's sort of a hierarchy, I felt like.
Yeah.
And so I initially felt a lot of like kind of looking over my shoulder because I felt like there were people that were like, I've been around longer and who the fuck is this guy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which was probably a lot in my head.
Yeah.
But it always felt like there was kind of like this established sort of like, these are the people who've been here a long time and who've put the time in and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, ultimately it's like, comedy. I wish comedy were more of a meritocracy, but sometimes there are elements of a meritocracy to it. And my sort of early stance on everything was put your head down, write good jokes, and people won't be able to ignore you, you know. And that was kind of my approach from the beginning. But that 2018, I think I made it I always made it at least to the semifinals. I made it to that. 2018 was the fourth time I'd been in the finals. But I honestly always I'd kind of resigned myself at that point I always felt like I could get there to the end, but I never felt like I was going to win.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was just kind of a little too meek of a personality, you know?
Yeah. You were so different from what everyone else was doing on stage.
Yeah. And so that year I signed up on the last day because I had thought about, I was like, maybe I just don't do it this year. And then finally I was like, or you know what, one last time. And I got put on since I signed up so late, I got put on the last weekend or that last final Monday. And so I went 3 Mondays in a row and just ran the table. It was 3 Mondays back to back to back. And I was surprised as anybody that I had won, and but that was the one year that strategy wise, I always used to try and do some of the longer jokes, and I was always trying to show some range, do some of the one-liners, and then do a medium length, and then end with kind of a longer thing.
Yeah.
And then that last year, I was just I'm just going to lean into what I'm good at, and I'm going to tell as many jokes as I possibly can, and just hammer one-liners and into everybody's head. And that was what it finally ended up paying off, was just leaning into what I was good at,
And isn't that the message that you would take to Duncan's class, is just lean into what you're good at?
Yeah. And I think it's fun to try stuff. I wish I was sometimes I wish I was more adventurous, and especially taking a long break from comedy, after COVID.
Yeah.
I thought if I go back out, I'd like to try something different, and it hasn't materialized yet. I just kind of keep it going my own way. But that's what's fun to me.
Yeah.
I was telling Duncan's class the other day, I'm it's not math, but it's not math, and I like the sort of the science of putting it together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of writing something really tight and condensed, and that's what keeps me wanting to do it. So that's kind of what I lean into.
Yeah. I remember because I had started going to the FPIA finals. I wonder, it might have been, I don't remember who was 2015. Maybe that was the year I first went, because then I went when LaShonda won, and then when Enzo won.
So Enzo was 17, LaShonda was 16.
16.
So 15 would have been Palumbo or Hustack.
Yeah.
I think it was Palumbo.
Okay, then I saw Palumbo.
Yeah.
Maybe he was the first that I ever saw. So it was funny to see, Enzo was so out of the blue for everybody.
Yeah.
But I went back and rewatched his set afterward just to make sure that I was not missing something. And I'm no, that was
he was great.
Really, really well crafted set.
Yeah.
And I love that the judges, picked him as the winner for really putting on a very, very good set.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, because I have beef with who they've been picking since, they were rewarding a really excellent writer, and that the performance was not the top decision maker or make or break. It was the writing, the craftsmanship of the writing.
Yeah.
And I think people were really excited about that.
Yeah, and I had nothing but I had so many people reach out and say, really nice things. And I think that year, I think Colleen or whoever told me, she was that's one of the fastest deliberations that they've had.
Wow.
And I was wow, that's because I remember standing outside. I think I still was smoking cigarettes at the time, and I was outside, and somebody's they're calling, they're already coming back, and I was oh shit, and so we all ran back, ran back in there, but yeah, it was, I was, like I said, I never really thought that I was gonna I always thought I could get close, but I was never.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had like a big enough personality to actually like. Excuse me. And most years there was always like there was kind of an odds-on favorite every year, where everybody's like, "Oh, it's this guy's year or this girl's year," and that year I hadn't really been hearing anybody, in particular, and but yeah, it surprised me. And I remember Enzo, I went up there and he's like a foot taller than me.
That's true.
And he gave me a big hug and he just said, "Hey man, it's okay if you cry." I did.
Aw. That's so sweet.
But in my speech I referenced going to Cap City at my very first night in town with my friend, and I had written a speech in my head 7 years ago. Like, if I ever won, what would I say?
Yeah.
And I remember after I came off stage, I think it was like Tellez or Severino. Somebody's like, and I think Enzo actually said that was way better than my speech. But I think Tellez or Severino or somebody had said, like, "Did you write a speech for this?" And I was like, "I've had a speech in my head, like, I mean,
You're a writer.
I'm in the shower. I'm claiming Oscars in there, like I've got speeches for a lot of things that are never going to happen, but it never hurts to prepare sometimes."
So you kept performing after FPIA, and then the pandemic hits.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, you disappear from the scene.
Yeah. I in the aftermath, like right after of the contest, I did like 25 shows in 22 days. Like I got asked to do everything, and I was too. I kind of just like liked the like, okay, cool, like everybody wants it, but I did that for like a month, and I was like, okay, you have to start saying no to some things, and so I started asking for more money than. People were like, "I want you to headline the show." I'm like, for 25 minutes, I need $50 at least.
Yeah.
And some people said yes, but that was the way I learned to kind of like what my value. I earned the right to like kind of say no to things or given myself permission to say no to things. And then COVID came, and I was still going up, but I told like. Looking back on it, I told people, it was like, I kind of kept going for a while, like simply out of inertia, like because I'd do one show and somebody like, "Hey, do you want to do my show next week?" And so I would just kind of like, "Yeah, okay, I'll keep doing that." But I kind of stopped writing. And then COVID happened, and I told people, like, I got about 4 months into COVID, and I realized, like, not only do I not miss this, I don't think I was having fun for like the last 6 to 8 months.
Oh, wow.
I think that I was just doing it. And so through most of COVID, I mean, I was unemployed through almost all of COVID.
Oh, gosh.
And I was getting unemployment, though. It was pretty sweet for a long time. I've never been on unemployment in my life. I always had a job, but it was like... And I could have written a novel or whatever, instead I drank a lot of White Claws. And but I just kind of was like, I don't know if I would like to go back to it. And then maybe, I think a couple of weeks after things kind of had, once I was vaccinated and things started to open up, I did Sure Thing. Duncan and Brendan had me on one of the second or third ones that they had back. And I did it. And I was like, that's fun, but I still don't miss it, And so I just stopped.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I just kind of was like, I would still write stuff like, running
were
doc.
Were you writing at all?
I had like little bits here and there that I would still like take notes of like the way I used to, like in a notes app or whatever. Yeah. But I never really like... I had no place that I was performing, and it was like the longer it went, the more I was like, this feels like I'm like trying to convince myself to do it for the first time again. And I had completely shifted careers at that point. So I was like learning a new job. And so it was just, there was a lot of stuff going on where it was like, I need to focus on learning my new job now. And this isn't as big a deal. And I was writing all day at my job. I was doing copywriting stuff. And so I was like getting off of work and then writing more, And it wasn't until Duncan we started talking about what was going to follow up Sure Thing. I really was just kind of like advising him on what it could be and had no intention of being involved.
Yeah.
And then the more we kind of was like, okay, we've been talking about this for like 6 months. Like, I would prefer that you're there. And, I started going, okay, but I don't want to be on stage for anything. And then it was like a little bit longer. And then he's like, come talk to my stand-up class. And so I did that. And he's like, somebody can't be there. I don't want one of them to go last. So do you want to do stand-up on my class? And I was like, so the first time I had done stand-up in like almost 3 years was the Duncan's first stand-up classes showcase. I closed out so that one of his students didn't have to do it.
Nice.
But I was worried that I wasn't going to remember the jokes, but it turns out if you say something about 5,000 times that it just permanently sears into your brain. So, yeah.
So, and as involved as you are in Fallout Tonight, and you write for the show, and then you perform a little bit more regularly now on the show. It's a cheesy way to ask this question, but what is your relationship to comedy now?
I mean, I work from home now, and so like a lot of I love doing the show. I love what it's become. But initially it was like I liked getting out of the house, and then as we've done the show longer and longer, and I've been on stage more, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I still do enjoy this, and it's still fun, and going out and performing more. Now I'm like, I've gotten closer to, like I'm writing a lot more regularly, and I'm getting closer to, like, I talked to Angelina the other day, and she's like, if you decide that you're like gonna go out, she's like, I'll talk to everybody. You'll be booked 5 days, or like plenty of times a week, however much you want to do it. Like I'll put the word out for you. You can do our show. I've talked to Hunter Duncan, and he's like, whenever you're ready, just let me know.
Yeah.
And so it's like I could get out and do it. There's just so many more venues now that I don't know a single person, and it's like that's kind of the part that scares me, but I'm like, maybe I'll just kind of do a little bit at a time. But I don't, my relationship to comedy is muddled.
Look at you. What a callback, man. 48 minutes in. That's And now I have to ask you, were you thinking about doing that all along?
No, it just kind of occurred to me, and I was like, yeah, we can call that back. But it's getting, it's getting, before I guess I always approached, when I was pre-COVID, I was always approaching it as like, how can I make this a career? And it stopped, and I just didn't have I'm in my 40s, and I don't have the moment, like I didn't have the chutzpah to be like, let's start all over again, and now we're doing Instagram reels, and I'm just like, I just don't have that. And so I part of like what I've been dealing with is like, I just need to like get to a place in my head where I can be like, this is just for me. This is just to get me out of the house. This is just for fun because I like doing this and not seeing it as like some career move, know? Yeah. And I'm getting closer to that, and that's where I'm currently at. So
yeah. If you happen to listen to the conversation that Duncan and I had earlier this year, a month ago, it's been a long.
I think I listened to that one.
4 weeks since
I always
late
listen
January.
to the one. I listen to the one he does to see if he mentions my name. So.
Yeah, that's one of the things that came out of that episode, is just realizing, you should be doing stuff for yourself, and you're creating something, and does it have to be your career? No.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you're creating something, and that's what's important.
Right. And it's just like it keeps your mind sharp, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I don't think everything has to be this like, during COVID, I got super into plants, and then I went and worked at a plant store, and I had a great time. It paid like shit though, and I was like, now I don't like plants as much because now it's like work.
Yeah.
It was way more fun whenever it was just kind of like I could go and spend a little money at
Yeah.
a plant shop and then talk to my friends who are also into plants and be like, look at this new one I got, and we'd trade clippings and all that sort of stuff. But then I like worked at a nursery in the summertime. It was 108 degrees outside. I'm like, this sucks. For $12 an hour, like, eat shit. But it was like, I don't want to. Not everything has to. You don't have to turn every hobby into a side hustle. And So I think that I'm getting better at getting to the place where I can just be like, comedy is just something that it scratches an itch in my brain, and I don't want to move to LA.
Yeah, that too. All right. Then the other thing that I'll say that came out, I think, right, the first. So I guess that would have been last January. So the 2024, right? Last January, because the last Sure Thing was in 23. And I think this is probably part of it, is when Duncan was talking about how Fallout Tonight came together. He said, these are my friends. These are my longtime friends, and I get to do something to hang out with my friends, which was always the premise for Sure Thing.
Yeah.
Him getting to hang out with BKO all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that is part of the equation for you too, is that you're getting to do something, with your friends.
Yeah.
And that makes everything better, right?
For sure. And, like personally, it was like once we started doing the show, like for one, it was just like I liked getting out of the house and like doing something with my friends. Mm-hmm. And Duncan and I talked about it so much, and he's like, I can't wait till the first show. And I said, I can't wait till the show's 6 months from now, because we've been talking about what we think it's going to be. I want to see what it becomes, And, but, you were like we talked earlier about, like, I'm kind of timid and shy. I was always like scared of saying the wrong thing in front of the wrong person pre-COVID, and like trying to be like, oh, he gets along with everybody, but it's because nobody really knew me that well. Coming back into this like post-COVID, I gave a lot less of a shit about what people thought, and so there are people awesome. Like Catherine Hutchins, who I'd seen said hello to maybe like 2 times before. She and I were on Low and Inside or whatever that show that Aaron Brooks and. We were on the same team for that. And I don't think I ever talked to her. And then we started doing the show here, and I'm way less worried about embarrassing myself or saying something. And she's great.
She's
I'm like,
amazing,
yeah. But it was like, she's somebody I never really talked to before because I was just scared of everybody,
It's funny because she is too, right?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I think that may have been what we bonded over. Yeah. But yeah, she actually told me at the time, she's like, I loved that we never really talked. She was like, he's cool, but we don't have to talk. And I'm like, that's what I thought, But I do like seeing everybody, and I'm like a lot more chatty with people that I used to be kind of like, I wish I'd spent more time getting to know, but I was just always scared. And now I'm like, I don't have any, like, I'm not trying to like protect an identity or a persona or anything like that. It's just way more fun to just be friends with everybody.
And getting older is so helpful.
Oh your give a fucks go away.
Exactly. Well, we're going to start winding down. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you would like to talk about?
I don't think so. I think we covered most of my I think we covered most of the stuff all of the major points of my comedy life.
All right, very cool. Well, are you ready for your closing question?
Yes.
One word to describe your future.
One word to describe my future. Murky. Murky and muddled.
Aren't these like traits of drinks too? Like, don't you muddle a drink? And I don't know if murky is, but it seems like
Yeah,
it
not a
would be.
good drink.
Yeah, probably not a good drink.
I've never been. I don't know. I'm not much of a planner, and so it's hard for me to be like, well, I'm gonna do this. Like, I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't have a 5-minute plan.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
that's cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is a wrap on Comedy Wham presents Jon Mendoza. Jon, tell us where we can find you on social media if you want and promote your projects.
Oh, I think we have at Fallout tonight on most things. And my Instagram is personal.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. All
Well,
right,
I
good to
have
know.
it set to private. I don't have any comedy stuff on there or anything like
Okay.
that.
All right. I guess I got in, pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope you've enjoyed learning about how Jon got to be the comedic genius that you heard today, just as much as I have. This has been Comedy Wham presents Jon Mendoza. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Jon.
You're welcome. Thank you.